They told you freedom was out there in the perfect job, the perfect partner, the perfect number in your bank account. They told you that when the world bends to your will, then you'll feel at peace. Then you'll finally be free. But they were wrong because true freedom doesn't start with what you own. It starts with what you control. And until you learn to master yourself, your thoughts, your emotions, your habits, your fears, you will remain a prisoner, not to others, but to your own untamed mind. This is not poetry. This is not theory. This is a law that every titan in history discovered through blood, doubt, and relentless discipline. The man who cannot command himself will never command life. You've seen it. You've felt it. You've lived it. That moment when your emotions hijack your logic, when your fears drown your courage, when procrastination steals your future in silence, and yet you think you're in control. But if you can't wake up when you said you would, if you can't keep a promise to yourself, if you keep shrinking when life demands that you rise, then you're not the master. You're the slave. The chains may be invisible, but they are there, forged in doubt, bound by distraction, locked by laziness. And every day you don't confront them, they tighten. But listen closely, because the moment you decide to stop blaming the world and start ruling your mind, that's the moment everything changes. Your prison becomes your palace. Your fear becomes fuel. Your pain becomes your blueprint. Because freedom is not ease. Freedom is power, and power begins with self-mastery. They say mindset is everything, but most don't know what that truly means. Mindset isn't just positive thinking. It's not about wishing or hoping. It's about the lens through which you see the world, and more importantly, how you see yourself within it. Every empire starts with a vision, but no vision survives a weak mindset. You will never build a future stronger than your self-belief. Henry Ford once said, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right." That's not a quote. That's a declaration of war against every excuse you've ever made. Because the battle isn't out there. It's in your head. It's between the version of you that rises and the version of you that caves. The version that takes control and the version that looks for someone else to blame. Look back. The moments you regret most, they weren't because life hit too hard. They were because you didn't respond with strength. And what is strength, if not the choice to stay in command when everything begs you to break? When Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times trying to invent the light bulb, do you think he felt fearless? Do you think he never doubted? No, he was human, but he had mastery. He knew failure was data, not a death sentence. And that mindset, that refusal to surrender to temporary results, is what lit the world. So I ask you now, are you in command of your mind, or are you being run by it? Are you focused by discipline or distracted by habit? Are you deciding your day or reacting to it? Freedom doesn't come from the world agreeing with your plans. Freedom comes from building the kind of mind that cannot be broken when plans fall apart. Let me be clear. This is not about perfection. This is about intention. It's about choosing to act from vision instead of emotion. It's about choosing discipline when every part of you wants comfort. It's about choosing long-term alignment over short-term relief. And that choice is available every single moment. But only the few make it. Only the few step into the mirror, look themselves in the eye, and admit the real enemy isn't the market, isn't the critics, isn't the system, it's the part of you that keeps settling, the part that seeks validation instead of growth, the part that chooses the couch over the calling. That's the dragon, and until you tame it, you will never be free. You see, self-mastery is not a destination, it's a practice, it's a way of living, and it begins with radical honesty. You want wealth? Then stop spending like a child and start managing like a king. You want health? Then stop negotiating with your excuses. You want clarity? Then cut the noise, cut the lies, and get still. The truth is, most people are afraid of mastery because it means they can no longer hide behind circumstances. They can no longer blame their upbringing, their boss, their ex, or their luck. Because when you take full responsibility for your life, you also inherit full power. And power terrifies the untrained mind. Because now you're accountable. Now there's no one left to save you. But here's the secret. You were never supposed to be saved. You were supposed to wake up, to rise up, to show up, not for applause, not for followers, but for yourself. Because when you master you, you become unstoppable. The world bows to the man who has conquered himself. Freedom begins when you realize the war was never about the world. It was about your identity. Because if you don't know who you are, the world will tell you. And it will not be kind. It will label you. It will sell you a lesser version of yourself. It will whisper lies so convincingly you start calling them truth. You're not ready. You're too old. You don't have what it takes. And if you haven't mastered your mind, you will listen. But let me remind you of something ancient, something eternal. No one gave Lincoln permission to lead. No one handed Elon Musk a roadmap. No one told Oprah she was destined for greatness. They decided, they drew the line, and they did not cross it ever again. They didn't wait for clarity. They created it. They didn't wait for motivation. They moved without it. Because mastery begins when identity locks in. Who you believe you are is the ceiling of what you'll achieve. So if you still see yourself as the underdog, the outsider, the overlooked, you will sabotage every breakthrough you touch. Because the unconscious will never let you rise higher than the identity it protects. You want freedom? Then decide today who you are. Declare it. Claim it. Because the world reflects back not what you wish, but what you believe. If you say, I am disciplined, you will act accordingly. If you say, I am focused, you'll start filtering life through that lens. But if you keep repeating, I'm just trying, or I'm overwhelmed, or I'm stuck, you're telling your nervous system to settle. You're building a cage inside your own mind. But what if you stopped speaking like a victim and started thinking like a visionary? What if every word that left your mouth was a brick in the empire you're building? What if every action, no matter how small, was another page in the autobiography of the person you were meant to become? That's mastery. But hear me loud and clear. You don't get mastery without discipline, not hustle, not hype. Discipline, the daily, dull, repetitive, unglamorous decision to show up when no one's watching, to push when no one is clapping, to stay late, to rise early, to say no to what feels good now in service of what will feel right later. Discipline is not punishment. It's proof of how much you believe in your future. When Andrew Carnegie built his steel empire, he wasn't chasing dopamine. He wasn't scrolling his mornings away or sleeping through opportunity. He was on fire with intention, not because it was easy, but because he trained his mind to obey his mission. And that's what most people miss. They think success comes from luck or talent or some mysterious edge. But no, success comes from the man or woman who can sit in the boredom of routine and keep showing up with precision. Because freedom without discipline is chaos, and chaos will always find a way to destroy itself. You say you want financial freedom? Then start by mastering your time. You say you want emotional freedom? Then start by mastering your reactions, because you can't live a life of power with a mind that's still seeking comfort. Discipline is the bridge, and every step you take across, it rewires your identity. Think about the last time you said, "I'll do it tomorrow." Did tomorrow ever come? That's the illusion. The mind is a master manipulator. It sells you delay as wisdom. It convinces you that fear is caution. It tricks you into trading decades of potential for moments of relief. And until you build the discipline to override it, you will continue to betray yourself. But the beautiful thing about mastery is that it's built in silence, in moments when no one is looking. When you choose water over excuses, when you get out of bed when no one's clapping, when you say no to something small so you can say yes to something massive. Every act of discipline is a vote for the person you are becoming. And the more you vote, the more that identity solidifies. Discipline is how the ordinary become inevitable. Now listen closely, because this next truth will shake you. There are two kinds of pain in this world: the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. The first one makes you stronger. The second one makes you smaller, and you will experience both in life. But only one of them leads to freedom. If you avoid discipline now, you will suffer regret later. That's not opinion. That's law. So choose your pain wisely, because the moment you begin to embrace the discomfort of growth, you begin to break the cycle of emotional slavery. You stop being the person who needs everything to feel right, and you become the person who makes things right. This is the shift. This is where you stop living from circumstance and start living from character. You were never meant to be controlled by your past. You were never meant to be reduced by your doubts. And you were never meant to live a small life just because it felt safe. You were meant to master this instrument, this mind, this body, this will, and use it to carve your path through history. But only when you stop chasing external validation and start demanding internal excellence will that door finally open. Because the world doesn't give you freedom, you take it. And the only key that opens that gate is mastery. Most people are not held back by a lack of talent. They're held hostage by their emotions. They react, they overthink, they fear judgment, they chase applause, and in doing so, they surrender the throne of their own mind to noise. But the man who masters his emotions, he becomes untouchable, not because life gets easier, but because he gets stronger. Understand this. Your emotions are messengers, not masters. They are signals, not shackles. Fear is not your enemy. It's just your mind asking, "Are you prepared?" Doubt is not a sign to stop. It's a sign to sharpen. Frustration is not a wall. It's a mirror, reflecting where your standards are being violated. But only if you observe, only if you pause, only if you are present enough to recognize that in every emotional spike, there is a choice: to be consumed or to command. Think of a Navy SEAL in combat. Do you think he panics when bullets fly? No, he's trained. He's calm in chaos because his body obeys his conditioning. not his panic. He's not numb. He's prepared. That's what you must become. Because life is not fair. It's not gentle. It doesn't care if you're tired or insecure. It respects one thing: control. And when you control yourself, you can begin to shape reality around you. But here's the paradox no one talks about. You cannot control yourself if you're at war with yourself. You say you want power, but you resent your struggle. You want greatness, but you complain about discomfort. You want purpose, but you're distracted by comparison. So let me offer you a new frame, one that has transformed empires, not just individuals. Gratitude is not soft. Gratitude is not weakness. Gratitude is warfare. Against the voice that says you're not enough. Against the lie that says you're too late. Against the story that says you don't deserve to rise. Gratitude is the sword that slices through victimhood. It turns suffering into strength. It says, "This is mine, and I will use it." Do you think Nelson Mandela endured 27 years in prison by hoping? No. He trained his heart through gratitude. He found purpose even in the cell. He didn't wait to be free. He became free before the gates ever opened. That's not luck. That's leadership. That's mastery of the highest kind. And you're not in a prison. You're in a pattern, a loop of reacting, doubting, consuming, comparing, and calling it normal. Break it. Stand still. Breathe. Say out loud, "I am still here." Because the power to change your life does not exist out there. It lives in the moment you choose to take responsibility for everything, even when it's not your fault. Gratitude for the pain. Gratitude for the silence. Gratitude for the failure. Because everything the world tries to use against you can be turned into ammo if you master yourself. Here's a truth very few want to hear. You don't need more information. You don't need more motivation. You don't even need more time. What you need is alignment. Alignment between what you say you want and how you show up every single day. You want clarity? Stop lying to yourself. You want peace? Stop fighting the reality that growth requires resistance. You want to lead? Then stop chasing control over others and start establishing dominion over your own reactions. This isn't just philosophy. This is power, because the world doesn't need more people chasing trends. It needs individuals who are rooted, disciplined, centered, unshakable. The kind of man who doesn't scream to prove himself. He just moves in truth. The kind of woman who doesn't beg for worth. She just walks like someone who remembers who she is. Because that is what real freedom looks like. Not applause, not validation, just alignment. You don't need permission to rise. You need permission to release. To release the stories that no longer serve you. To release the identity that was built in survival. To release the guilt that keeps you chained to a version of yourself that was never meant to last. Look around. Every person you admire, they had to die to an old identity before they could rise into a new one. It wasn't a glow up. It was a shedding. It was a funeral. For the habits, the mindset, the version of themselves that couldn't carry the weight of who they were becoming. So don't fear the pain. Don't run from the silence. Don't numb the discomfort, because those are not signs of weakness. They are the birth contractions of transformation. You are not breaking. You are becoming. But only if you lean in. Only if you stop begging for life to go easy and start demanding that you grow stronger. There will come a day, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, when everything you planned will fall apart, the deal will collapse, the person you trusted will walk away, the thing you thought would define you will break. And in that moment, you'll be given a choice far more important than any opportunity. Will you collapse with it, or will you rise from it? Most people think freedom is having control over life. But the truth is, freedom is not needing control at all, because the world doesn't move in straight lines. It bends, it shakes, it tests you, and if your peace depends on stability, then your peace is fragile. But when you adapt, when you become fluid, like water, like wind, you are unbreakable. Bruce Lee said it simply, be water, my friend. What does water do? It flows around the obstacle. It doesn't argue. It doesn't panic. It reshapes itself, but it never loses its essence. And that's what self-mastery creates. The power to stay true to yourself, even when the world loses its mind. It's the power to look at failure and say, this didn't destroy me, it refined me. It's the power to lose everything, but never lose yourself. Because you know you are the foundation, you are the engine, you are the source, and as long as you remain, the vision remains possible. Resilience is not about staying positive. It's about staying in motion. It's about waking up on the 10th day of failure and still doing the work. Not because you feel like it, but because your purpose doesn't ask for your emotions, it asks for your presence. When Walt Disney was told he lacked imagination, he built an empire. When Colonel Sanders heard no 1,000 times, he kept knocking. When Edison saw darkness, he created light, not because they were fearless, but because they were resilient, because they refused to let one moment define the rest of their life. You want freedom? Then you must outlast your struggle. You must wear your scars not as shame, but as armor. Because here's the ultimate truth. No one becomes powerful by avoiding adversity. You become powerful when you stop waiting for perfect conditions and start executing with imperfect tools. You become powerful when you look at what little you have and still say, I'll build with this. That's where freedom lives. Most people think purpose is found, but purpose isn't found. Purpose is built. It is carved from suffering. It is shaped through repetition. It is revealed when the fire doesn't kill you, but purifies you. Purpose isn't a feeling, it's a vow. A vow to stop living on autopilot. A vow to stop hiding behind what's comfortable. A vow to stop shrinking to fit in rooms you've already outgrown. And once you vow to live with purpose, everything changes. Your standards rise. Your circle shifts. Your tolerance for excuses disappears. And suddenly the habits that once entertained you now offend you. Because you see it clearly now. You are not made for survival. You were made for impact, for movement, for leadership, for greatness. But greatness is not a mood, it's a mindset. And it is reserved for those who are willing to bleed for alignment. So the question is not, what do you want? Anyone can want. The question is, what will you demand of yourself? Because until your standards rise, your life will shrink to fit the version of you that's settled. You don't rise by doing more. You rise by becoming more focused, more intentional, more deliberate, more immune to distraction, more tuned in to what actually matters. And what actually matters is this. You were born with power, but that power is dormant until you command it. Not with noise, but with stillness. Not with arrogance, but with clarity. Not with force, but with discipline. That's how self-mastery works. It's not loud. It doesn't shout. It just walks in the room and everything changes. The moment you start living like you are already free is the moment life begins to treat you differently. The world respects those who no longer flinch, who no longer seek approval, who no longer chase applause, success, or attention. The world bends for those who bend themselves first. So bend your habits, bend your distractions, bend your ego, and straighten your spine. Because freedom does not come to those who wish for it. It comes to those who train for it. And the greatest training ground is not in the gym, not in books, not in the applause. It is in the moment you decide, I will never again abandon myself. There will come a moment, and it may not be loud, it may not be dramatic, but it will define the rest of your life. A moment when you finally stop waiting, waiting for clarity, waiting for someone to see you, waiting for the fear to go away, waiting for the world to change, and instead, you rise. Not because you feel ready, but because you're done with being ruled. You're done with being led by feelings, done with shrinking for the comfort of others, done with breaking promises to yourself and calling it just life. Because the truth is brutal and beautiful. No one is coming. No one is going to fix it. No one is going to save you. Because that was never their job. It was yours, always yours. And now you know. Now you remember. Self-mastery is not about perfection. It's about full ownership. Ownership of your habits, ownership of your mindset, ownership of your destiny. Because when you take full responsibility, you gain full power, not partial, not conditional, total power. And in that power, you stop asking the world to go easier. You start asking yourself to go deeper. You stop negotiating with distractions and start eliminating them. You stop getting ready and you begin. And once you begin, truly begin, you will understand something the masses never will, that your freedom was never the prize. Your freedom was the starting point. You were meant to lead, to create, to command, to build something so real, so deeply rooted in discipline and vision that it cannot be shaken by market crashes, heartbreaks, or public opinion. This is your legacy, not the house, not the car, not the applause, your character, your consistency, your ability to look in the mirror and say, I know who I am, and I did not abandon myself. Because everything you touch, everyone you influence, everything you create will be a reflection of how well you've mastered you. And if you still live in reaction, if you still run from discomfort, if you still trade your time for validation, you are building a castle in sand. But if you are centered, if you are unshakable, if you move with conviction no matter who watches, then you are building an empire in stone. So hear me now, not as a voice in a video, but as the voice inside you that you've ignored for too long. This is not motivation. This is your wake-up call. A line in the sand, because the future you want is possible, but it is not guaranteed. It belongs to the one who dares to become it, and becoming is brutal. It will break everything weak inside you. It will rip away every lie you've used as comfort. It will leave you naked in the truth of your own potential and ask you, do you still want it? And if the answer is yes, then stand up. Stand up in your soul. Stand up in your habits. Stand up in your decisions. Because no one can do this for you, and no one will take it from you. You are not broken. You are untrained. You are not lost. You are unfocused. You are not weak. You are undisciplined. But all of that can change right now, right here, in this breath, in this step, in this decision to never again betray the greatness inside you. So from this day forward, move like someone who has nothing to prove, but everything to build. Walk like someone who knows they're being watched, not for attention, but for permission, because the way you live gives others permission to rise too. Speak like someone who doesn't beg for acceptance, but carves space with certainty. And think like someone who finally understands you will never be free until you master yourself. But once you do, once you are in command of your mind, your emotions, your focus, your decisions, your life, you become unstoppable. You don't chase freedom, you embody it, you radiate it, you are it, and the world will never be able to put chains on you again.